All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining us for today's demo webinar about automating 1099 management. I've got a few housekeeping notes to go through before we begin, but all lines are currently muted. So that being said, if you have any questions, feel free to answer them in the Q&A box at any time, and we'll be sure to leave a lot of time left over at the end to get those answered. We're also recording this webinar, so we'll be sending that recording out to you within the next 48 business hours. And now for some quick intros. My name's Alexis. I work on the product marketing team here at Routable, and I'm joined by Chad, our sales manager and demo wizard. We're only here for 20 minutes today, so we're going to go pretty quickly. I'll be sharing a bit about some of the signs that your 1099 process is broken, and then we'll dive into what you should be looking for in a vendor tax management solution. Then I'll hand the reins over to Chad, and he'll get into the good stuff and show a short demo, and we'll be sure to leave some time at the end for Q&A, as I mentioned. Now, I know I have a few new faces here today, so let me give you a quick intro into Routable and what we do. At our core, Routable is all about simplifying and accelerating accounts payable processes by ensuring compliance and helping businesses make payments faster and more efficiently. We enable fast, cost-effective payments, processing global transactions twice as fast and 30% cheaper than our competitors, with up to 50% savings on international fees. We also simplify vendor management, like we're going to be talking about today, with branded onboarding and secure tax document storage. And then whether you're paying a handful of vendors, Routable scales your business, even if you're paying thousands of vendors. So we help you accelerate your approval process, reduce costs, and keep everything running smoothly in your AP functions. Now, I know the Halloween was a couple of weeks ago, but honestly, preparing for 1099 season can feel scary all year long. We're going to take a look at some of the reasons why your 1099 processes may no longer be working for you, but drop a comment in the Q&A if you'd like us to send you some of these posters. So what does it look like when your 1099 process isn't working? Maybe you're reaching out to vendors individually to collect W-8s and W-9s. Or maybe you're managing tax documents in insecure channels like Excel or email. If you have no way to validate your vendor's tax information that you received, that could be a problem. Or maybe you're scrambling at year end to make sure that you have all the info that you need to file your taxes, making you worried each year about meeting the IRS filing deadlines. So what are some of the features you should be looking for in a vendor tax management solution? Definitely be looking for automated collection of W-8s and W-9s during vendor onboarding, taking that burden off of you. Look for TIN address, legal name verification so that all of the information you have up front matches what the IRS is looking for at year end. Make sure your document storage is secure. Tax information is really sensitive, and we don't want to be keeping it in insecure channels and coming up against problems in the future. Easy visibility into all vendors' missing tax documents with bulk requests. Again, you don't want to be doing this one-off. It's going to take you forever and be a real headache. And then you're going to want some ready-to-export data. So if you're using an e-filing service like Track 1099 or Tax 1099, let's get something that compiles all of your data in a secure channel that lets you easily upload and file your taxes. And an added bonus, if there's in-house e-filing services. I know we have some existing customers on the call, so I wanted to plug that Routable does offer in-house e-filing services. So essentially, our team will file all of your 1099s directly with the IRS, then send secure URLs to your vendors so that they can access their filed 1099s. And then on top of that, we'll deliver you a secure PDF copy of all of your vendors' filed 1099s. So what could it look like if you were e-file ready all year long? Chad's going to show you.
Thanks, Alexis. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. So for context, I want to make sure we highlight a few things and just ensure like what we're going to focus on here is how can we collect W-8s or W-9s? How do we bulk request for those that are missing that tax documentation within our current vendor database. How do we validate that data and ensure that there's accuracy there upon collection? And then more importantly, how do we monitor that as we go throughout the year? And when we get to that super fun time of year that everyone, clearly on this call, both customers and non-customers really look forward to, which is, the 1099 filing and prep. But all jokes aside in that regard, what we want to make sure to just really showcase is how this is going to be simple. So you'll notice here on my screen, we have a quick snapshot of all vendors here in our tax tools piece who are missing tax information. This becomes a really easy way for us to identify, as Alexis called out earlier, who do we not have this information collected to, either for W-8s or W-9s. Part of the reason being here is we're wanting to give some flexibility for users in the system to say, hey, how can I do this in bulk so it's not a one-off action? And then more importantly, how can we automate that so that with a single click, we can simply verify here, okay, we're going to send an email to 13 vendors who are missing this information. And we click one button, that request goes out. What's nice is that experience on the vendor side is branded as your company logo, colors, and imaging. So the experience for those who are going through the onboarding process is going to feel like it's coming directly from your company. So you don't have to do any educating on who is Routable, what do we do? That can all feel like it's coming directly from your company. Now, what I wanted to go into is showing once we've collected a W-8 or W-9, how do we automate the initial check via like the IRS database to ensure like, yes, there's no mismatches. So when you collect that information, we can run a check automatically in the back end through our vendor compliance feature to say, hey, does the legal name match? Does the TIN match what the IRS has on file? And if those come back, yes, we will give you an immediate match here to say, yes, this data looks good. Subsequently, we can also offer the ability to check against OFAC and watch list screenings if applicable. Now, what I also wanted to cover was what does this look like when somebody enters a compliance hold? Somebody who we recognize has a mismatch of data. What do we do here? This is where we give you a lot of flexibility as a user to say, what should we do here? What's the correct course of action? Should we archive this vendor? Should we re-request information? Most of the time, as y'all are aware, most of your 1099 rejections typically come because of fat fingering errors. They come because of just clerical mistakes that your vendors make upon filling out this information. So it's better if we can find this out up front to then let you know what do you need to do and how do you re-request this information from a vendor. So wanted to make sure that there was just a simple way to identify who matches the IRS database, who doesn't match that information. And then subsequently, if you need to collect this or re-request this information, you can actually just do so with a single click here on a one-off, or this can be done in bulk as well. So there's some flexibility and options there. Now, once we've collected the data, we've validated the data, naturally within our tool, we are going to, throughout the year, do a continuous monitoring every month. We will actually notify you on a per vendor basis if there are any changes, naming changes, like anything in that regard that should flag why you should need to re-request a W-9 or W-8 from your vendor. So we want to stay ahead of the curve relative to if any changes occur throughout the year, because part of coming into 1099 filing season is ensuring that data accuracy is there. That is going to transition to filing becoming even smoother for you and your team. We also introduced the ability through our tax tools piece to do additional filtering. So if you did want to look at countries, so if you are dealing internationally and you want to break down like who are our vendors by country, by entity type, by who we've paid in total this year. So this does become a secondary piece of like, hey, if we want to view a list of all vendors who are tax eligible, who've received, over $600, we can apply a filter to dictate, I want to just view those vendors in particular. So there is some flexibility with how you can silo the data depending on your preference here. Now, as mentioned, once this is all validated, collected, and we want to go straight to how do we prep that file to then subsequently do this through external services, as Alexis called out. We do have direct exports to track 1099, tax 1099. But what I want to make sure to call out here is relative to the data export out of our system, not only will we help prep the file itself, we'll actually make sure to attach the appropriate forms because that's like the most important part here is making sure if there's any MISC, any Cs, 1099Ks, 1042Ss. We want to make sure that we're appropriating the correct form relative to the data that you have on hand for a vendor so that filing is as smooth as it can be. Additionally, because I know that we have some customers here as well, we do offer as a professional service doing the 1099 filing and prep on your behalf. And that is a professional service that we do offer because, as I mentioned earlier, not everyone is super excited or ecstatic about going into 1099 filing season. And so for some, that seems intriguing to go, yes, I would love to push off that burden from my plate and have Routable assist there. So, Lexus, I'll pass it over to you.
Couldn't find my unmute there. Thanks, Chad. Let me go ahead and share my screen here again. We're going to get into some Q&A here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box here. It looks like we have a couple coming in, but please feel free to continue dropping them. All right, Chad. Putting you in the hot seat here. Let's see. Are there ways to create special permissions so that only certain team members have access to vendor tax info in Routable?
Yes, simple answer to that is we have custom role ability to be able to create governance and permission controls to be able to say, hey, for these specific users within the tool, I want them to be able to see or not be able to edit specific details relative to a vendor profile or have the ability to update W8s or upload those on their behalf. So there is a lot of restriction we can create there at a role level.
Okay, awesome. And then how secure is my data with Routable?
Data security is a really big priority here at Routable. Like all the data is encrypted, both in transit and at rest, and we comply with industry best practices to ensure, sensitive information like vendor tax details and SSNs, EINs, that those are, secured properly and that through custom permissions and controls that only authorized parties or users have the ability to view or see that information.
Awesome, thank you. And then let's see, what else do we have here? You touched a little bit on W8s and 1042s. How does Routable handle tax forms for international vendors? Do we do filing for international vendors?
We support international tax form collection for W8 Ben and W8 Ben E, and we can ensure that these are securely stored on a vendor's profile and record. At this time, however, we actually do not do the international filing for those 1042s.
Great. And then not all vendors are paid by Routable. So can we include our external vendors in the tax forms and still file those for, can Routable still file those for us?
Yes, of course. Really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is if information is stored externally of Routable, we can consolidate that into a template that we have and upload it and include it in the filings for those that exist within Routable's database.
Is there a switch to allow entry of a W8 manually instead of automatically?
This is a great question. And I'd love to follow up post this webinar on that one.
Yeah, that's perfect. I do know that we do give permissions to certain roles to manually upload tax documents if you've already got them. So you would still need to upload the W-8 yourself. I don't believe you would be able to manually enter TIN information. It would just be an upload of the form, but we can follow up just to be sure. Let's see what else we have. If the IRS sends letters of incorrect reporting, will Routable's tax responsibility answer those questions? I believe this is asking if our um, managed services team will work with the IRS directly to handle any issues. I can take
This
this one, Chad, if you're
Yeah,
not
I
sure.
was going to say this probably falls more on outside of my scope.
Yes. So I will speak on behalf of our managed services team and say that if there are any issues, we will work directly with you and with the filing service that we use on your behalf to correct any of those issues that come up. But that's a good plug for our vendor compliance checks, because the most important part of 1099 season is ensuring that there are no issues when you go into it. So if you validate your vendor's information up front, you shouldn't run into these issues come 1099 season. Let's see what else we've got. Sorry, there's one in here I'm just reading through. Is there a way to pre-populate fields of a W-9 through the API if we have that information within our platform? I'm not sure on this one.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is one that I think we would love to confirm with our internal team to ensure um, we can answer this appropriately on what capabilities extend through the API as far as information like that for data sensitivity is concerned. But let's follow up on that because I think it's a really valid question.
Yeah, definitely. All right. That's all of the questions that we have so far. We'll give one more minute to see if there are any stragglers coming through. But while we do that, I'd like to plug our next webinar if you haven't already signed up for it. The next webinar will be on November 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific, and we'll be talking about hands-free invoice OCR and bill coding. So go ahead and scan that QR code to sign up or follow the link here in the slides. Thank you, Caroline, for dropping that in the chat. As I mentioned, we will get this recording. Oh, we have a poll. Thanks, Caroline. If you could just, spend a couple seconds here filling out some of our poll questions, it really helps us make sure that the content that we're providing is useful for you, so that we can continue to do these in the future. That being said, thanks, Chad, so much for going through that with us. We appreciate you all being here and spending a little bit of your Friday afternoon with us, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.